welcome to part 4, where we set up the failover cluster. So I've already installed the Hyper-V role, and I've installed the failover clustering feature. Now I need to make the shared storage visible to my nodes so that I can then go ahead and install the failover cluster, create one. In order to do that, since I'm using iSCSI as my shared storage device, I need to go to my iSCSI initiator software and specify a target that I want to connect to. In this case, it's GM host 3, and click Quick Connect. Now, this will discover a number of targets, those that have been defined on that machine, and those are the ones that I showed you in the first part of this screencast. We need to connect to our quorum target, the cluster share volume that we're going to configure, the quick migration 1 and 2 targets. Then I click Done. Using Quick Connect, the targets are automatically added to the favorites list, and a connection will be tried every time that the computer is started, so we don't lose track of them. And I click OK. So now I will have visibility of my quorum and other volumes. Now these volumes have not been formatted yet for use with Server 2008. I mentioned the storage is now visible to the nodes of the cluster, but it's not necessarily online. And before we run a validation test, we need to take those disks that we put in the storage, the shared storage, and take them online on at least one node, the node that we're going to use for the configuration of the cluster. So we're going to take this one, take it online, the quorum, the CSV, and the 2 quick migration disks. We also need to initialize them. Now note that I'm doing this on one node at a time, and that this node is the one that I'm going to create the cluster on. The other node can see that there is a shared storage array, but it's not doing anything to it yet. So I've got my basic disk here. They're all basic disks. When they are shared, I can go ahead and format these basic disks. Create a new simple volume. And this is the quorum. I will call it Q. Call it quorum. And there we go. Now note that all I need to do is to have one disk to start the validation. That is the quorum disk, this queue. The rest, as long as they're online, can remain unallocated. So now I go ahead and start my cluster validation. So I fire up the failover cluster manager and validate the configuration. Next, add the nodes that I want to validate the configuration node, GM host 1 and GM host 2. Click Next, run all the tests. Next again for a confirmation, and then when I click Next, the validation will start. And I will pause the screen recording to let it complete. Okay, so now we have validated the cluster configuration. What we want to do is create the cluster that we validated. So we just click the link here, and the software will go ahead and set ourselves up a cluster. We give it a name. We'll call it, for instance, GM hyper v2. It will get a dynamically assigned address. It's a nice innovation of 2008. You can have a DHCP assigned address to the cluster with IPv6 as well. Click next and wait for the cluster to be configured. So I'll pause the recording now. Now we have a cluster called GM Hyper v2 made of two nodes, host 1 and host 2. The quorum type is node and disk majority. That's the classical shared quorum with quorum information on disk and also replicated on each of the nodes. It's got a DHCP assigned address, and since we had enabled just the one disk with an NTFS partition,